And, you know, we're in a battle for the soul of this country. And speaking of the battle for the soul of this guy, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on Joe Biden's candidacy. You know, every time somebody, a major candidate, we did it with Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg. Every time a major candidate has thrown their hat into the ring, I've asked you, what do you think? 202-808-9925 is our telephone number. You know, what are your thoughts on Joe Biden? Donald Trump welcomed him to the race this morning. He said, "Welcome to the race, Sleepy Joe. I only hope you have the intelligence, long in doubt, to wage a successful primary campaign." This guy's just like classless. You know, I was watching a video from The Daily Show this morning about the selfie stick scandal when President Obama used a selfie stick in the White House, and like a dozen different Fox News commentators talked about how he was bringing disrepute upon the office of the presidency, and no president in history has been so disrespectful. I mean, it was a major scandal over on Fox News, lasted for like a week. He used a selfie stick. And here's Trump, you know, saying, well, I don't think you're all that smart. Anyhow, Trump adds it'll be nasty. You'll be dealing with people who truly have some sick and demented ideas. Again, this is not the kind of language that a president of the United States should be using to describe a fellow American, much less a fellow politician. It's bizarre. And because of this kind of rhetoric from Donald Trump, yesterday, self-proclaimed Christian activist Dave Dobbin Meyer drove 8 hours. That was the day before yesterday he set out, or the 2 days before yesterday. 8 hours from his home in Ohio to Hillary and Bill Clinton's Chappaquiddick, New York home to demand Hillary Clinton's arrest. And on the way, he posted a video asking for Oath Keepers and other militia members to join him, right? Come on, armed people. He called the Clinton home the greatest crime scene in history. Now, why did this guy do this week? Because all this week, Sean Hannity and Donald Trump have been focusing on Hillary Clinton. I mean, they have to have an enemy. Donald Trump can only, and Sean Hannity and Fox News and all these guys, they can only be Superman. They can only be the good guy if they can portray, if they can have, I mean, you know, truly Superman, as opposed to just a good guy. The only way they can be truly Superman is to have a supervillain. And they've spent, you know, 15, 20 years creating this supervillain persona for Hillary Clinton. And they don't want to waste it, right? I mean, who else have they vilified that much? Well, there's Obama, but Obama's keeping quiet. And so Trump tweets about all the crimes committed by crooked Hillary. This was on April 24th. This was yesterday. This guy, Dobbin Meyer, who showed up to arrest Hillary, he also posted a video. He's got a YouTube channel, or had one. I'm guessing it's been taken down now, that included a lengthy discussion of how unjust. It's a crime that he can't use the N-word anymore. Right? Seriously. No, I'm not making this up. Seriously. And so anyway, with regard to, but I mentioned Joe Biden, and that's where I started on this. And I'm curious to hear your views on Joe Biden's presidency and where it fits in with the others. Also, yesterday was the She the People event. Women of color from all over the country were addressed by, I believe, 5, I could be wrong, of the major candidates. Maybe it was 7 or 8. And Bernie was kind of, at least according to the news reports, the crowd was unhappy with him, shall we say. Now, I don't know if he's getting the Howard Dean treatment. You'll recall that Howard Dean was on MSNBC with Chris Matthews back in the day. This was the primary for, what, 2008, as I recall? I'm not even sure which year it was. It might have been 2004. But, you know, Howard Dean was a serious contender, and he was the most progressive candidate at the time. And he was way ahead, and he was rolling on, and he says, you know, when we're going on to North Dakota and South Dakota and Michigan, yeah! And, of course, that's not how people in the room heard it. But the media used that to take him down. I mean, the media took him down. And it kind of concerned me when I saw CNN's producers picking these really extremist questions for Bernie. You've spent your life supporting totalitarianism, socialism like in the Soviet Union, which is just a flat-out lie, right? But they put her on. Bernie, of course, talked back to it. There were a couple of them like that. And I thought, if these are just one-offs and this goes away, then I can put my tinfoil hat back in the closet. But if I start seeing that particular clip, as bad and out of context as it is, just like Howard Dean's scream, over and over and over in the media, and I saw it this morning on Stephanie Ruhl's show on MSNBC. Sure enough, there it is. Then this is the media trying to take down Bernie, which, so let's say they succeed in taking down Bernie. Are they going to try and take down Elizabeth Warren next? I'm guessing yes. If what we're looking at is, giant corporations who own most of our media companies, in the case of MSNBC, it's Comcast, giant corporations saying, we really don't want a progressive as president. The excuse we'll use is we don't think a progressive can beat Trump, which is complete nonsense. But, so we'll see. We'll see where it goes. Anyhow, Joe Biden's positions. He has endorsed a $15 minimum wage. He's endorsed a free 4-year public college, by the way. He endorsed that in 2015. Keep in mind, these are Bernie positions, some of these. He said that his free college, in fact, was one of his top 5 policies to help the middle class. He's in favor of more progressive tax reform, in other words, higher taxes on rich people, more worker protections, major infrastructure investments, and incentives for investors to spend outside of major cities. He has called for a ban on non-compete agreements, which about half of American workers now have, that prevents them from going to work for other people in the same industry for a certain number of years. He asked, why are we giving hedge fund millionaires tax breaks but can't find the money to give families a real tax break for child care? With regard to health care, we don't really know what his position is other than that he supports, he said health care should be a right for all and not a privilege for the few. That's kind of Bernie language, but we don't know what the details are. On climate change, he introduced the Senate's, this, by the way, is from Maggie Astor's piece in today's New York Times. He introduced the Senate's first climate change bill in 1986. So he's been on this theme for some time. I mean, that was 30 years ago. He kept the United States in the Paris agreements, or he would keep the United States in the Paris agreement. He was the vice president when we joined the Paris agreement. But his full climate change platform, we don't know the details yet. With regard to abortion, he's been back and forth on this. We'll see where it ends up. In 1981, he even had an amendment to ban foreign aid for abortion-related biomedical research. But earlier this year, his aides would not say whether he still supports these policies. And on criminal justice, he said, for example, the Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1988, he said, I haven't always been right. So he's kind of walked back his own positions on a lot of these things. So, and one last thing that I would like to note. Last week was Holy Week, right? And celebrating is the wrong word, celebrating the resurrection, memorializing the execution, the crucifixion of Jesus. And so it's probably appropriate that Mohammed Bone Sawman, Mohammed bin Salman, Jared Kushner's best friend in the Middle East, staged 37 executions in a single day, including a crucifixion. One of the people arrested was a student he was arrested at the airport on his way to Michigan. He was 17 years old. He was on his way to go to college at Western Michigan University. He has been held for 7 years before he was beheaded. Why? He took part in a public protest. 3 of those executed were arrested as minors. The youngest was 16. And according to CNN, quote, one was crucified as a deterrent to others. Jared Kushner, of course, used his security clearance to provide the Saudi dictator, Mohammed, Bone Sawman, to provide him with the names of suspected enemies. How many people whom Kushner turned over have been beheaded or crucified isn't clear. I think that this is something that Congress should be looking into. if you're going to use your investigative powers to find out what's going on, one of the most important things, I think, would be to find out what national security information did Jared Kushner give to Mohammed bin Salman, and how did he use it? I think that's actually a very, very big deal. And then, once again, with regard to the Trump campaign, the NRA has been busted using a series of shell companies. The NRA gave 9,259 times the legal limit to the Trump campaign, along with a bunch of other Republicans. But we're looking at, flat out, blatant, obvious, illegal campaign finance stuff. And now the FEC, the Federal Election Commission, is being sued. This was a day before yesterday, actually. The lawsuit was handed down. Is being sued for refusing to enforce the law, for not going after the NRA.